Thank you very much. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about some fundamentals and trends throughout 2013 that inform the decisions that we'll be making in 2014. So as Pepe mentioned, my name is Stephanie. I work at Superdata Research in New York City, and I'm the senior analyst for consumer insights. Basically, I lead our research team in taking the data that the data team provides us with and attaching trends and context to the numbers that we're given. And Superdata is a provider of market intelligence for free-to-play and digital games. And we collect and aggregate data from publishers and developers to identify and analyze trends in the digital space. So we work with a large, diverse number of customers, and they come from all corners of the games industry, including major publishers, distributors, media companies, and financial firms. So before I get started, I wanted to just share a quick story that I think is relevant to the mobile market in a lot of ways. And on my way over to Amsterdam, it's a very long flight, and I'm very nervous about flying. So I was listening to one of my favorite artists, Ani DeFranco, to kind of calm my nerves. And one of the songs that I was listening to was a song about how she didn't want to sign with a large record label because she wanted to preserve her creative integrity. And she talks a lot about that, specifically because when she was 18 years old in 1989, she started her own record label. And she produced all of her own music, selling it out of the trunk of her car. And now she's a very large success. She has 17 artists on her label, and she's won several awards, including a Grammy. So I was thinking a lot about her, and then it occurred to me that she has a lot of parallels to maybe the past in the mobile world. And I was wondering, could she have done that kind of grassroots marketing and get that kind of success she's gotten today with the current music market? And it's really hard. So, just like we are facing currently in the mobile world, she entered before there was an oversaturation that was caused by new technologies like MP3s and music streaming. So now we have a large number of apps that are just, there's a huge influx of apps coming into the different app stores, and trying to get visibility within that oversaturation, as you all know, I'm sure, is extremely difficult. And also the kind of self-marketing and face-to-face that she was able to do with her potential listeners has become difficult for potential developers to find their player base or find the people that they need to invest in their game and have that face-to-face time, that pounding the pavement, self-marketing. It can be very, very difficult. So, a lot of things have changed that would have made it really hard for Ani DeFranco to do today what she had done before. And I was thinking that the things that are making it harder for her are similar to the struggles of the smaller mobile developers breaking into the mobile games market. And so I wonder, how would the Ani DeFranco developers survive today? And obviously I thought about this subject quite a bit before I even thought of Ani DeFranco on the plane. And a lot of that has been in the past year in my position at Superdata, seeing the just staggering growth of mobile games. And it led me to wonder, are mobile games getting too big and looking over the edge of a cliff, or looking at a potential bubble pop? Or can they still find growth and success in the coming year? And so, as a researcher, it's just a habit of mine to think that everything can come from data, and you can contextualize anything that you need to. So looking toward 2014, I think it's essential to look back and learn from 2013 in order to inform decisions that will keep mobile from beginning a tumble. So first, I'm going to talk a bit about, like I said, the 2013 mobile market and throw some numbers out there so that we can contextualize some of the fundamentals that we saw during the past year in terms of drivers and trends in the mobile market. And finally, what can you expect in 2014? So In 2013, the Western market held a 48% market share in mobile games revenue. And in 2013, there was also $14.5 billion in mobile revenue coming in, as well as 1.6 billion MAUs. And if we look at that in terms of growth over time, revenue and audience increased by quite a bit, about over 100% in the last 2 years, and then 34% MAU has increased over the last 2 years. And although the Western market share in mobile games has decreased 6% over the past 2 years, mobile games are both the largest and fastest growing digital markets across Western games markets. And as players get more used to spending and smartphone penetration grows worldwide, we're expecting to see a continued growth in revenue and audience. So in light of this fast-paced growth, there are things that we need to consider as part of the market, and especially if you're entering the market, like what kind of a developer or publisher do you want to be? Do you want support from a large publisher, or do you want to go the indie route? And how do you fit into the evolution that we're seeing in the mobile market? So to answer these questions, it's important to understand how this data was driven throughout 2013 and look at some trends. And so the number of mobile games by large publishers like Gameloft, Big Fish, and Chillingo continue to grow. And Big Fish, for example, it's currently has 394, I believe, mobile games in the market. And so though Gung Ho, King, and Supercell have made it to the top with only a handful of games, it's important to note that there's actually a lot of affiliation between other large publishers. So we see that there are relationships between larger publishers that allow smaller publishers to grow their resources or get insights from industry veterans. Furthermore, a lot of these publishers are industry veterans in the sense that they don't just do mobile games. They come from a background and a tradition of other platforms. And so the successful publishers that we're seeing stay in the top ranks. A lot of them have designers and product managers that are seasoned and have been behind successful games in the past, as well as having experience on other platforms that's giving them knowledge in the industry. So we're kind of looking at 2013 being a year of the mobile games cartel. Just the conglomeration of publishers into just a few of them, and those publishers holding a large stake in the industry. So the percentage of mobile games the mobile games revenue that come from the top 100 games is about 40%. And keep in mind that that's only 0.05 of all of the mobile games 0.05% of all of the mobile games that are available. And the percentage of top 100 games from the top 30 publishers is about half, and that fluctuates, of course, but that's quite a large stake. So simply put, large publishers have the experience and resources to hook their claws into top ranks and keep them on top. And this makes a lot of sense if we consider marketing costs rises. So if we look at indexed CPI figures, CPI has grown, or cost per install has grown 251% year over year, while ARPU has grown 38% year over year. And of course, there are certainly alternatives to high cost CPIs. So I've heard that Facebook mobile acquisition is actually a very economical way for smaller publishers to afford marketing tools, specifically cross-platform. But it's important to keep in mind that marketing costs will continue to grow as there is a growth in the industry. And so Ed Rumley, I recently read, the CEO of Chillingo, stated that we don't simply take a game from a developer and upload it to the App Store. We assign a team of people to complement the developer's existing resource and skill set. So Large publishers can dedicate time and human resources to smaller developers that may not have that to ensure that they gain revenue growth and rank growth. And they also have made many mistakes, so they've learned from them. And so another way that they are keeping their stake in the industry is that larger publishers are beginning to franchise not just titles, but gameplay and monetization mechanisms, moving away from sort of the, I would say, Zynga model, where you're just putting a 2 at the end of a title that you've already produced, and maybe making it look a little nicer and streamlining some of the monetization. That's no longer the case. We're looking at publishers who are taking fresh material that their players will respond to in a similar way, and then adding those same proven monetization and gameplay models that they've seen, seen become successful in their other games. So they shuffle their player base from game to game, and therefore are able to hold their position. So in light of this, what's next for 2014, and what can smaller developers expect as points of opportunity in the market? Well, mobile games revenue is expected to grow to $21.1 billion in 2014, garnering a 45% increase year over year. And the first reason is because just plain old smartphone penetration is growing in emerging markets, and so we just are having more people sign on to smartphones and play games, and that's fairly evident. But there's also been, of course, a growth in ARPU. However, the growth has been on a decline. So it rose 17% in 2012, but only 3% in 2013. This doesn't mean that spending is not going to increase, and revenue obviously will increase over the next year. And a lot of this has to do with conversion. Conversion is on a steady incline. People are just more comfortable spending. They spend more often, and once they spend, they're likely to continue spending during the lifetime of their gameplay. So although they're reaching a ceiling of the amount that they're willing to spend, more people that normally wouldn't have spent before are learning to trust the industry and contribute more funds. So what do the Ani DeFranco developers need to keep in mind in 2014? First, just as it has become easier to play games online, it's getting a lot easier to put them online too, specifically on mobile devices. So there's been a large influx of technology that has caused traffic in terms of mobile app development. And so it's important to keep in mind that the market is going to continue to saturate, and you need to learn how to navigate that. And as publishers like King, for example, move toward other media channels like television commercials and learn to advertise on other platforms, smaller developers are going to have a harder time becoming visible. And finally, as we've seen in mature media markets, music, movies, television, top-selling products are still breaking revenue records, meaning that there are more people buying, and there's a greater availability of these things to purchase, and people are spending more money. And so there's going to be an increase of resources that help keep the top publishers on top and perpetuate the current cycle that we're seeing. So does this mean that mobile is heading towards a cliff or that a bubble is about to burst? And I think no. Growth means opportunity, and that means opportunity for everyone. It doesn't just mean opportunity for larger publishers. But the market has matured in the way of a traditional media channel. So it's important to keep in mind that throwing a game out there and hoping that it'll just find its way to the top is no longer going to be viable. And research is going to be very important to how you are able to market your game and decide who is going to be playing your game. You're going to need to learn to target very specific gamer audiences that you would like to come to your game, but also to spend on your game. So developers are going to need to take a different approach than we've experienced in the past. And that means do your research. I mean, obviously I'm partial to research, but there's a reason why companies like us and Superdata have been able to make businesses and grow our businesses in the past 4 years, or 5 or 6 years, and that's because data and research is of the utmost importance in such a competitive market. And so, just as you would with a TV show, finding the right audiences, getting focus groups together, and so on, it's important to understand very key ideas that will help you grow your game. For example, who will play your game? Identifying your very, very specific audience, and that can go so far as providing profiles for your gamer. What do they buy? How much do they spend? And what are they spending their money on? Deciding how much they're going to have left over to spend on your game. How they're going to monetize inside your game is also very important. Are they going to be one-time spenders? Are they only going to monetize a little bit? So will you need to get a large number of MAU because your conversion is maybe lower or your ARPU is lower? And how long are they going to stick with your game? How long can you expect to gain revenues from these gamers over the lifetime of their gameplay and over the lifetime of your game? So there are a number of things to consider, and mobile research has a lot to gain by understanding who you're targeting and what you want from them. So as with rock climbing, which is one of my favorite pastimes, you want to rely on what's proven to climb to the top. And in rock climbing, that's pushing up with your legs, which seems a little bit counterintuitive. So creating a game that you love, that you think is going to be wonderful, is intuitive, right? You think that that's going to be the only thing you need to do and people will find you. But finding you is just one more struggle on top of creating a great game, and therefore the counterintuitive part is learning as much as you can about who you're targeting. And so just as the legs are the strongest muscle to use when climbing, your research is going to be the strongest muscle that you use. So you may not have the resources and the experience of larger publishers, but you have the power behind what you learn from your potential player base. And so you should harness that and push upwards. Thank you.
Questions from the audience? Yes.
I don't know if I missed it, but are there any numbers to show the amount of revenue derived from games that are released by big publishers and compared to independents?
Well, I do have in terms of the top 100 games. I can go back to that slide.
But in total, not just
in total, it's hard to define. We don't have a solid number just because the industry is growing so quickly that once you find a number that you can sort of feel confident behind, that number can change. But in terms of the top 100 games, we're finding that a good chunk, about 40% of revenue is coming from there, and large publishers are holding about half of that. And so from there, you can make some assumptions toward how much more they're making outside of the top 100 games, but I don't have a solid number at this moment.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Peter Worm at New Zoo. I just actually came back from the office and we found, this is on the previous question, based on US App Store spending, there's 247 publishers, individual publishers, that make net at least $1 million a year. So that's a studio of 10 people. I found it interesting because some people say there's no long tail, everything goes to the big guys. But there's only, say, 30 big guys. So there's 210 publishers that in States alone earn more than $1 million a year. So that's good news.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. I actually have a question.
Sure.
Sometimes we talk about emerging markets, but we don't have a definition
Oh,
of
okay.
which are these countries.
So a lot of the emerging markets that we're seeing are markets where the smartphone penetration growth has been substantial over the past 2-3 years. Likely Russia or Brazil. Latin America is slow growing, but it's becoming an emerging market in a lot of ways. And we're seeing in Eastern Europe, so Poland and then in the Middle East, Turkey. Those are largely the emerging markets that we focus on.
And in terms of OS, which OSs are dominating in these emerging markets?
Which OS is Android? Yeah, largely Android. I mean, worldwide Android has about an 70% stake in smartphones. However, the United States and Western markets are such a large part of revenue that iOS has a very large stake in revenue. But in terms of just number of people on different OSs, Android is the larger one.
Do we have any other questions? I think we have time for one more question. No? All right. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you so much.